The woman standing at the edge of the cliff looked like she had already made her final decision. Her black dress whipping in the Montana wind as dust swirled around her worn boots. August Morrison had been tracking a stray calf for the better part of the afternoon when he spotted her silhouette against the fading orange sky. Something about the way she stood there, so still and yet trembling, made his heart clench with recognition. He had seen that posture before, in soldiers after the war, in homesteaders who had lost everything to drought and disease. It was the stance of someone who had run out of reasons to keep going. He dismounted quietly, his boots hitting the rocky ground with barely a whisper. The woman did not turn around. She was younger than he had first thought, maybe 25 at most, with dark hair that had come loose from its pins and tumbled down her back in waves. Her hands were clenched at her sides, white-knuckled and shaking. "Madam," August called out softly, not wanting to startle her. "That's a long way down." She stiffened but did not turn. "I know exactly how far it is." Her voice was hoarse, as if she had been crying for days. August took a careful step closer, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "I reckon you do, but I'd appreciate it if you would step back from there and talk to me for a minute." "Why?" The word came out bitter and sharp. "You do not know me. You have no reason to care what happens to me." "Maybe not," August admitted, taking another step. "But my mama raised me to help folks when I can. And right now you look like you could use some help." The woman laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Help? I am beyond help, Cowboy. Everything is gone. Everything." August could see her shoulders shaking now, and he knew he was running out of time. Whatever had brought her to this cliff, it had eaten away at her until there was nothing left but this terrible emptiness. He had to reach her, had to find the right words. "I am August Morrison," he said, keeping his voice calm and steady. "I work at the ranch about 5 miles east of here. Been here about 3 years now, ever since I came back from the war. What's your name?" She was quiet for so long he thought she would not answer. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, Nora Michaels." "Nora," August repeated, tasting the name. "That's real pretty. Listen, Nora, I do not know what brought you here today, but I know this much. Whatever it is not worth throwing away your whole life over. You do not understand." Her voice cracked. "I have nothing left. My husband died 6 months ago from fever. The bank took our farm last week. I have no money, no family, nowhere to go. I came to Montana Territory with dreams, Cowboy. Dreams of building something, of having a home, and now it is all ashes." August felt a familiar ache in his chest. He understood loss more than she knew. "I lost my brother in the war. My parents died of cholera the year before that. I came out here with nothing but my horse and the clothes on my back. I know what it feels like when the world crushes you down until you cannot see any way forward." Nora finally turned to look at him, and August saw her face clearly for the first time. She was beautiful, even with her eyes red and swollen from crying, even with the stark grief written across her features. There was something about her that struck him like lightning, a connection he could not explain. "Then you understand," she whispered. "You understand why I am here." "I understand the feeling," August said carefully, moving a bit closer. "But I also know that feelings pass. Pain eases, not completely maybe, not fast, but it does ease, Nora, if you give it time." "I am so tired," she said, and her voice broke completely. "I am so tired of fighting and losing. I am tired of being alone. I am tired of waking up every morning and remembering that everything I loved is gone." August was close enough now that he could reach out and touch her if he wanted to. Instead, he just stood there, letting her see that he was not going to grab her or force her. This had to be her choice. "I know tired," he said quietly. "I know it down to my bones, but Nora, listen to me. You are standing here talking to me right now. That means some part of you is not ready to give up. Some part of you is still fighting. Tears streamed down her face. I do not know how to keep going. One step at a time, August said. Starting with stepping back from that edge and coming with me. I cannot promise you that everything will be all right. I cannot wave a magic wand and fix what is broken. But I can promise you a hot meal and a safe place to sleep tonight. I can promise you that you will not be alone, at least for a little while. And maybe that is enough for today. Nora looked at him with such raw vulnerability that August felt his own eyes burn with tears. She looked back at the drop, then at him again, and he could see the war being waged inside her. Finally, with a shuddering breath, she took one step back, then another. Then she collapsed, her legs giving out beneath her, and August moved quickly to catch her before she hit the ground. She sobbed into his chest, great heaving cries that seemed to come from the very depths of her soul. August held her carefully, one hand on her back, murmuring soft reassurances that he hoped she could hear through her grief. He did not know this woman, had never seen her before today, but holding her felt right somehow, like his arms had been made for this exact moment. When her sobs finally quieted to hiccups and shaky breaths, August gently helped her to her feet. She would not look at him, shame and embarrassment coloring her tear-stained cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "I am sorry, I do not know what came over me." "No need to apologize," August said firmly. "You have nothing to be sorry for. Come on. Let me get you back to the ranch, Mrs. Chen, the cook. She will fix you up with something warm to eat." Nora nodded mutely, and August led her to where his horse stood waiting patiently. He helped her up into the saddle, then swung up behind her, keeping one arm around her waist to steady her. She was so thin he could feel her ribs through the fabric of her dress. How long had it been since she had eaten a proper meal? The ride back to the Morrison ranch took about 40 minutes. August owned a modest spread with his cousin, running cattle and breaking horses for sale. It was not much, but it was honest work and it paid enough to keep them fed and clothed. As they approached the main house, he could see smoke rising from the chimney and lamplight glowing in the windows. His cousin, Jack Morrison, came out onto the porch as they rode up, his expression curious. "August, what have you got there?" "This is Miss Nora Michaels," August said, helping her down from the horse. "She has had some hard times. I told her we would give her a meal and a place to stay tonight." Jack, bless him, did not ask questions. He just nodded and held the door open. "Mrs. Chen just finished making stew. There is plenty to go around." Inside, the house was warm and smelled of bread and beef. Mrs. Chen, a Chinese woman who had come to Montana with her husband to work on the railroad before he died, appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She took one look at Nora and immediately began fussing over her, leading her to a chair by the fire and wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "You sit," Mrs. Chen ordered in her heavily accented English. "I bring food. You eat." Nora tried to protest, but Mrs. Chen would hear none of it. Within minutes, she had placed a steaming bowl of stew and a thick slice of bread in front of Nora, along with a cup of hot tea. Nora stared at the food as if she had forgotten what it was for, then slowly picked up the spoon and began to eat. August watched her from across the room, pretending to be interested in the papers on his desk, but unable to keep his eyes off her for long. There was something about her that called to him, something beyond just the natural compassion anyone would feel for someone in distress. He wanted to know her story, wanted to understand what had brought her to that cliff. More than that, he wanted to see her smile. Over the next hour, as Nora ate and began to warm up, August learned more about her situation. She and her husband had come to Montana Territory 2 years ago, full of hope and dreams. They had bought a small farm near the town of Manassas, planning to grow wheat and raise chickens. But the first winter had been brutal, killing half their livestock. The second year, her husband Thomas had fallen ill with fever and died within a week, leaving Nora alone and in debt. "I tried to keep the farm going," she said quietly, staring into her tea. "I worked from sunup to sundown, but I could not do it alone. The wheat failed. The chickens got into some poisoned feed and died. And then the bank came calling for the mortgage payment and I had nothing to give them." "When did they take the farm?" August asked. "4 days ago. They gave me until sundown to clear out. I packed what I could carry and walked away. I have been staying in the boarding house in town, but I ran out of money this morning. I could not face another day of it. The pity in people's eyes, the whispers behind my back, the knowledge that I failed at everything I tried to do." "You did not fail," August said firmly. "You fought against impossible odds. There is no shame in that." Nora looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. "You really believe that?" "I do. And I will tell you something else. You are stronger than you think. Most people would have given up long before you did. The fact that you kept fighting for as long as you did, that says something about your character." For the first time since he had found her, August saw a flicker of something other than despair in Nora's eyes. It was small, barely there, but it was hope. Fragile and tentative, but hope nonetheless. "I do not know what to do now," she admitted. "I have nowhere to go, no skills that anyone would pay for. I can cook and clean and tend a garden, but that is not enough to make a living on." August exchanged a glance with Jack, who had been sitting quietly in the corner. Jack gave him a small nod, and August felt relief wash over him. "We could use some help around here," he said carefully. "Mrs. Chen handles the cooking, but there is plenty of other work. Mending clothes, tending the vegetable garden, helping with the chickens. It would not pay much at first, just room and board and a small wage, but it would be honest work." Nora's eyes widened. "You would do that for me? You do not even know me." "I know enough," August said. "I know you are a hard worker. I know you have had a rough time and deserve a chance to get back on your feet. And I know that I would rather have you here, safe and fed, than out there somewhere struggling alone." Tears welled up in Nora's eyes again, but these were different from the ones she had shed on the cliff. "I do not know what to say. You have given me hope when I thought there was none left. How can I ever thank you?" "No thanks needed," August said softly. "Just get some rest tonight and we will talk more in the morning about what needs to be done around here." Mrs. Chen showed Nora to a small room at the back of the house. It had been used for storage but had a bed and a window that looked out over the mountains. It was simple but clean, and Nora looked at it as if it were a palace. "Thank you," she whispered to August as he stood in the doorway. "For everything, for saving my life, for giving me a reason to keep living." August felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You are going to be all right, Nora. I promise you that." That night, as he lay in his own bed, August could not stop thinking about the woman sleeping down the hall. He had acted on instinct when he saw her on that cliff, driven by a basic human decency that would not let him ride past someone in need. But now, having talked to her, having seen the strength beneath her despair, he felt something more. It was too soon to call it attraction, too complicated given the circumstances, but there was definitely something there. A pull, a connection. The next morning, August woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. He dressed quickly and headed to the kitchen where he found Mrs. Chen and Nora working side by side. Nora had changed into a simpler dress, one that Mrs. Chen must have lent her, and had braided her hair back from her face. She looked better than she had the night before, though there were still dark circles under her eyes. "Morning," August said, pouring himself a cup of coffee. Nora looked up and gave him a small smile. It was the first real smile he had seen from her, and it transformed her face. "Good morning. I hope you do not mind. I wanted to help with breakfast. Not at all. It smells delicious. Over the next few weeks, Nora settled into life at the ranch. She worked hard, throwing herself into every task with a determination that August both admired and worried about. He suspected she was trying to prove her worth, to show that she deserved the second chance they had given her. He wished he could make her understand that she did not have to earn their kindness, that it was freely given, but he knew that would take time. Slowly, as the days turned into weeks, Nora began to relax. The haunted look in her eyes faded, replaced by something calmer, steadier. She laughed at Jack's terrible jokes and argued good-naturedly with Mrs. Chen about the best way to preserve vegetables. She spent her afternoons in the garden, coaxing life from the Montana soil with patient, capable hands, and August found himself drawn to her more and more. He looked for excuses to be near her, to talk to her. He loved the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, the way she bit her lower lip when she was concentrating. He loved her quiet strength, the way she had pulled herself back from the edge and built a new life from the ashes of the old one. It was a warm evening in late August when things changed between them. August had been out checking the fence line and came back to find Nora sitting on the porch steps, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. He sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Beautiful, is it not?" Nora said softly. "Sure is." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the crickets and the distant lowing of cattle. Then Nora turned to look at him, her expression serious. "August, I need to tell you something. I have been here almost a month now, and I do not think I have properly thanked you for what you did, for saving me, for giving me a home when I had nothing. Nora, you do not have to keep thanking me. Yes, I do, because you saved more than my life that day. You saved me from myself, from the darkness that was swallowing me whole. You gave me hope when I had none. You showed me that there are still good people in this world, that not everything is loss and pain." August felt his heart pound against his ribs. "Nora." "Let me finish," she said, placing her hand on his. The touch sent electricity through him. "I came here broken, ready to end everything, and you did not just offer me charity. You offered me dignity. You offered me a chance to be useful, to matter. You treated me like a person, not a burden. And because of that, I am whole again. Or at least, I am beginning to be." "I am glad," August said quietly. "I am so glad you are still here, Nora." She looked at him with those beautiful, expressive eyes, and August saw his own feelings reflected back at him. Without thinking, without planning, he leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. Nora stiffened for just a moment, and August started to pull back, afraid he had misread the situation. But then she leaned into him, her lips soft and warm against his, and he knew he had not been wrong. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Nora's cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright. "I did not mean to do that," August said, though he could not bring himself to sound apologetic. "Or rather, I have been wanting to do that for weeks, but I did not want to take advantage. You have been through so much, and I am your employer, and I do not want you to feel pressured." Nora laughed, a real laugh that made his heart soar. "August Morrison, I am a grown woman. If I did not want you to kiss me, you would know it. I have been hoping you would do that for at least 2 weeks now." "You have?" "Yes, you fool. Why do you think I keep finding reasons to be wherever you are? Why do you think I smile every time I hear your voice?" August felt like his chest might burst with happiness. "I thought I was imagining things. I thought it was too soon, that you were still grieving for your husband." Nora's expression grew serious. "I will always carry Thomas in my heart. He was a good man and I loved him, but he is gone and I am still here. And I think he would want me to live, to be happy. I think he would approve of you. I hope so, August said. Because, Nora, I am falling in love with you. I know it is fast. I know we have not known each other long, but I cannot help it. You are the strongest, bravest, most beautiful woman I have ever met, and I want to be with you, if you will have me. Tears spilled down Nora's cheeks, but she was smiling. I am falling in love with you too. I never thought I would feel this way again. I never thought I could. But you make me want to hope, to dream, to believe in the future. August pulled her into his arms, holding her close as the sun disappeared below the horizon and the stars began to appear. They sat there for hours, talking about everything and nothing, making plans and promises. It felt right, felt perfect, like all the pain and loss they had both endured had been leading them to this moment. The next morning, August asked Nora to go riding with him. They saddled up 2 horses and rode out across the prairie, the late summer grass golden in the morning light. August showed her his favorite spots on the ranch, the places where he went when he needed to think or to be alone with his thoughts. Nora shared stories from her childhood in Ohio, before she had married and moved west. As they rode, August could not stop watching her. She sat her horse well, confident and easy in the saddle. Her face was turned toward the sun, and she looked happier than he had ever seen her. This was what she was meant to look like, he thought. Free and joyful, not crushed beneath the weight of grief and despair. They stopped by a creek to let the horses drink and sat on a fallen log, their knees touching. August took Nora's hand in his, marveling at how small and delicate it felt despite the calluses from hard work. Nora, I want to ask you something, but I do not want you to feel rushed. If you need time, I understand. She looked at him curiously. What is it? Marry me. The words hung in the air between them. Nora's eyes went wide, her mouth opening in surprise. I know it is soon, August rushed on. I know we have only known each other a month, but I love you, Nora. I love you with everything I am, and I do not want to waste time pretending I do not feel what I feel. Life is too short, too uncertain. I want to spend every day I have left making you happy, building a life with you. Will you marry me? Nora was quiet for so long that August's heart sank. He had moved too fast, scared her off. But then she smiled, that beautiful smile that lit up her whole face. Yes, she said simply. Yes, August, I will marry you. The joy that flooded through him was unlike anything August had ever felt. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her, pouring all his love and hope and dreams into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, they were both laughing, giddy with happiness. They rode back to the ranch to share the news with Jack and Mrs. Chen. Jack clapped August on the back, congratulating him with genuine warmth. Mrs. Chen cried happy tears and immediately began planning a wedding feast. We should do it soon, Nora said that evening as they sat together on the porch. I do not want a long engagement. Is that all right? That is more than all right, August assured her. How about next month? That will give us time to make arrangements and let people know. Next month sounds perfect. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Nora sewed herself a simple but beautiful dress of pale blue calico. August bought a new suit in town and got his hair trimmed. They decided to have the ceremony at the ranch, with the local minister presiding and a small gathering of friends and neighbors in attendance. On the morning of the wedding, August woke with butterflies in his stomach. He had been sure of his decision from the moment he asked Nora to marry him, but now that the day was here, the magnitude of it hit him. He was about to bind his life to hers, to promise to love and cherish her for the rest of his days. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The ceremony itself was simple and beautiful. Nora looked radiant in her blue dress, with wildflowers in her hair that Mrs. Chen had helped her pick that morning. When August saw her walking toward him across the grass, his throat tightened with emotion. This woman, who had been so close to giving up on life, was now choosing to build a new life with him. It felt like a miracle. They exchanged vows under the wide Montana sky, promising to love and support each other through whatever trials lay ahead. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife and August kissed his bride, he felt like the luckiest man alive. The celebration afterward was joyful and raucous. The neighbors had brought food and drink, and someone produced a fiddle. There was dancing and laughter and toasts to the happy couple. August could not take his eyes off Nora, who glowed with happiness as she moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and well wishes. As the sun began to set and the guests started to head home, August and Nora finally had a moment alone. They stood together watching the last of the wagons disappear down the road, Nora's head resting on August's shoulder. "Are you happy?" August asked softly. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Nora replied. "When I think about where I was just 2 months ago, standing on that cliff, ready to end everything. And now here I am, married to the most wonderful man I have ever known, with a home and a future and hope. It seems impossible." "But it is real," August said, turning to face her. "This is real, Nora. We are real, and we are going to build a beautiful life together." They spent their wedding night in the room that had been August's alone but was now theirs to share. They made love slowly, tenderly, learning each other's bodies with gentle hands and whispered words. Afterward, as Nora lay curled against his chest, August felt a peace he had not known in years. He had found his home, not in a place but in a person. The next months were some of the happiest of August's life. He and Nora settled into married life with an ease that surprised them both. They worked together during the day, Nora helping with the ranch chores while August tended to the cattle and horses. In the evenings, they sat together on the porch, talking about their dreams for the future. As autumn turned to winter, Nora began to feel unwell in the mornings. At first, they worried she had caught some illness, but Mrs. Chen took one look at her and smiled knowingly. "You are with child," she announced one morning, as matter-of-factly as if she were commenting on the weather. Nora's eyes went wide, her hand flying to her stomach. "Are you sure?" "Very sure. I have seen many pregnant women. You have all the signs." August felt his heart skip a beat. A baby. They were going to have a baby. He looked at Nora, searching her face for her reaction. She looked shocked, overwhelmed, but as their eyes met, her expression softened into wonder. "We are going to have a baby," she whispered. August pulled her into his arms, hardly daring to believe it. "Are you happy about it?" "Yes," Nora said, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I am so happy, scared but happy." The pregnancy was not easy. Nora was sick for the first few months, unable to keep much food down. August worried constantly, hovering over her and driving her half crazy with his concern. But as winter gave way to spring and her belly began to swell with new life, the sickness passed and Nora bloomed. August loved watching the changes in her body, the way she glowed with health and happiness. He talked to the baby through her belly, telling stories and singing songs his mother had once sung to him. Nora would laugh and rest her hands over his, feeling the baby kick and move. "What do you hope for?" Nora asked one evening as they sat together, her feet in his lap as he rubbed away the aches of pregnancy. "A boy or a girl, I do not care," August said honestly. "As long as the baby is healthy and you come through the birth safely, nothing else matters." "I hope for a boy who looks like you," Nora said softly, "with your kind eyes and strong hands." "And I hope for a girl who looks like you," August countered, "with your beautiful smile and brave heart." The baby, when it finally arrived on a warm day in May, was a boy. He came into the world squalling and red-faced, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that could wake the dead. August held his son for the first time and felt something shift inside him, a love so profound and immediate it took his breath away. "What should we name him?" Nora asked, exhausted but radiant as she watched her husband cradle their child. August thought for a moment. "How about Thomas, after your first husband? He was a good man and he would have wanted you to be happy. I think it would honor his memory." Fresh tears spilled down Nora's cheeks. "You would do that? Name our son after him. He was part of your life, part of what made you who you are. I am not jealous of his memory, Nora. I am grateful for the time you had with him because it taught you how to love fully and honestly. Our son would be lucky to carry his name." "Thomas Morrison," Nora said, trying out the name. I like it. I like it very much." Little Thomas was a good baby, healthy and strong. He had August's eyes and Nora's smile, and he wrapped both his parents around his tiny fingers from the first moment. August had never known he could love anything as much as he loved his wife and son. The years that followed were full and rich. The ranch prospered, allowing them to expand their herd and build a bigger house. Jack eventually married a schoolteacher from town and moved to his own spread a few miles away. Mrs. Chen stayed on, becoming as much a part of the family as any blood relative. 2 years after Thomas was born, Nora gave August a daughter. They named her Mary after August's mother. She had blonde hair like sunshine and a laugh that could light up the darkest day. 3 years after that came another son whom they named James. He was quieter than his siblings, thoughtful and observant, always watching the world with serious eyes. As their children grew, August and Nora made sure to tell them the story of how they met. Not the darkest parts, not the cliff and the despair, but the important parts. How sometimes people go through terrible times, but that does not mean they are broken beyond repair. How kindness and compassion can change lives. How love can grow even in the hardest soil. Thomas grew into a tall, serious young man who loved working with the horses. Mary was spirited and adventurous, always getting into scrapes and talking her way out of them with that winning smile. James was the scholar of the family, always reading and asking questions about how things worked. August watched his children grow with pride and gratitude. He thought often of that day he had found Nora on the cliff, how easily things could have gone differently. If he had taken a different path while tracking that calf, if he had been 5 minutes later, if she had stepped off before he could reach her. The thought made him cold, the idea of a world without Nora in it, without the children they had made together. One evening, when the children were all in bed and he and Nora sat together on the porch as they had done countless times over the years, August voiced these thoughts. "Do you ever think about that day?" he asked quietly. "The day we met." Nora was silent for a moment, her hand finding his in the darkness. "Yes, not as often as I used to, but yes, it feels like a lifetime ago now, like it happened to a different person. Do you ever regret it, that I stopped you?" Nora turned to look at him, her eyes serious in the lamplight spilling from the window. "August Morrison, how can you ask me that? Look at everything we have built. Look at our children, our home, our life together. How could I ever regret this? I just worry sometimes that you might resent me for taking that choice away from you." "You did not take anything from me," Nora said firmly. "You gave me everything. You gave me hope when I had none. You gave me a reason to keep living when I could not find one on my own. You gave me love and children and a future I never dreamed I could have. You saved my life, August, in every way a person can be saved." August felt tears prick his eyes. Even after all these years, she could still move him with her words. "I love you, Nora. More now than the day I married you, if that is even possible." "It is possible," Nora said, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Because I feel the same way. You are my home, August, my safe harbor, my everything." They sat there in the comfortable silence of people who know each other completely, who have weathered storms together and come out stronger. The night air was cool and sweet, carrying the scent of the flowers Nora had planted around the house. From inside, they could hear the soft sounds of their children sleeping. As the years continued to pass, August and Nora grew old together. Their hair turned gray, their hands grew gnarled with arthritis, but their love never diminished. They danced at their children's weddings, held their grandchildren with gentle, experienced hands, and continued to work the ranch together until their bodies would no longer allow it. Thomas took over the main operation of the ranch, proving to have his father's head for business and his mother's determination. Mary married a lawyer and moved to Helena, though she visited often with her growing family. James became a teacher, opening a school in Manassas where he educated the children of farmers and ranchers with patience and passion. On their 40th wedding anniversary, August and Nora sat together on the porch of the house they had built, surrounded by children and grandchildren. There was a feast spread out on long tables, music and laughter filling the air. August looked at his wife, her face lined with age but still beautiful to him, and marveled at the life they had created. "You remember what you said to me?" Nora asked, as if reading his thoughts. "That first night when you brought me here, I said a lot of things that night. You said I was going to be all right, you promised me." August smiled. "And was I right?" "You were right about everything," Nora said, taking his hand. "You gave me hope when I needed it most, and you have never stopped giving me reasons to hope. Every day with you has been a gift, August. Even the hard days, even the days when the children were sick or the cattle died or the money was tight, because we faced it all together." "I would not change a single moment," August said, "except maybe I would have kissed you sooner." Nora laughed, that same laugh that had captured his heart all those years ago. "You kiss me plenty soon enough, you foolish man." As the sun set over the Montana mountains, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold, August pulled his wife close and kissed her. Around them, their family celebrated, but in that moment, it was just the two of them. Two souls who had found each other in the darkness and built a life filled with light. The years continued their inevitable march. August and Nora eventually had to move in with Thomas and his wife, their own bodies too frail to manage the big house alone. They took it with grace, grateful to be surrounded by family in their final years. August went first, on a crisp autumn morning when the leaves were turning gold. He died peacefully in his sleep, with Nora holding his hand. She mourned him deeply, but without the desperate despair that had once consumed her. She knew grief now, knew that it was the price of love, and she bore it with the strength August had always known she possessed. Nora lived another 3 years without her husband. She spent her days with her grandchildren, telling them stories and teaching them to plant seeds in the garden. She talked about August constantly, keeping his memory alive with every breath. When she finally followed him, it was in the spring when the wildflowers she loved were blooming across the prairie. Her children and grandchildren gathered around her bed, and she smiled at each of them in turn. "Do not be sad," she whispered, her voice weak but clear. "I have had the most beautiful life. I have been so loved, and I have loved so much. Your father is waiting for me, and I am ready to go to him." Thomas held one of her hands, Mary the other, while James stood at the foot of the bed with tears streaming down his face. "Tell us again," Mary said softly. "Tell us how you and Papa met." Nora smiled, her eyes growing distant with memory. "I was lost," she said. "So lost I could not see any way forward, and your father found me. He gave me hope when I had none. He showed me that even in the darkest moments, There is light if you are brave enough to look for it. He loved me when I could not love myself, and because of that love, I learned to live again. We built this family together, this beautiful, messy, wonderful family, and I am so grateful. For all of it, for every moment. Those were her last words. She closed her eyes and slipped away peacefully, a smile on her lips. They buried her next to August on a hillside overlooking the ranch they had built together. The whole town of Manasseh turned out for the funeral, a testament to the lives they had lived and the people they had been. The minister spoke of love and faith, and the bonds that tie families together across generations. But it was Thomas who gave the final eulogy, standing at his mother's grave with his siblings beside him. "Our parents taught us many things," he said, his voice strong despite his grief. "They taught us the value of hard work, the importance of kindness, the power of forgiveness. But most of all, they taught us about love, real love, the kind that endures hardship and celebrates joy, the kind that saves lives and builds futures. My father saved my mother when she needed it most, and she saved him right back by showing him what it meant to truly live. Together, they created something beautiful and lasting, and that is what we will carry forward, their legacy of love." The years continued to pass as they always do. The ranch stayed in the family, passed down through generations. The story of August and Nora was told and retold, becoming a family legend. Children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren learned about the cowboy who saved a woman from despair, and the woman who taught him about hope. The house they had built still stood, expanded and modernized over the years, but still fundamentally the same. You could still see the spot on the porch where they had sat together thousands of evenings, talking and dreaming and simply being together. You could still walk through the garden Nora had planted, now tended by her descendants with the same careful love. And if you rode out far enough across the ranch land, you could find the cliff where it all began. It looked different now, softened by time and weather, but it was still there. A reminder that darkness exists, yes, but also that light can break through. That despair is not the end of the story. That sometimes, when we need it most, hope finds us in the form of a stranger who chooses to care. The Morrison family grew and flourished, spreading across Montana and beyond. Doctors and teachers, ranchers and business people, artists and soldiers. All of them carried within them the legacy of August and Nora, two people who had found each other at the exact right moment and built a love that transcended time. On the 100th anniversary of their wedding, the family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. There were over 200 descendants now, all connected by blood or marriage to that original union. They shared a meal, told stories, and raised glasses to the couple who had started it all. Thomas's great-grandson, a young man also named August, stood before the crowd and spoke. "We are here today because of a choice. Two choices, really. My great-great-grandmother chose to step back from that cliff, and my great-great-grandfather chose to reach out his hand to a stranger. Those two choices created all of this, all of us. It reminds us that our choices matter, that kindness matters, that love matters. They faced terrible things, our ancestors, loss and grief and hardship, but they faced it together, and that made all the difference." Later that night, as the celebration wound down and the stars came out over the Montana sky, the family walked together to the hillside where August and Nora were buried. Someone had placed fresh wildflowers on the graves, the kind Nora had always loved. They stood there in silence, each person lost in their own thoughts, connected by invisible threads of love and blood to the two people who rested beneath the earth. And in that silence, in that gathering of family, the legacy of August and Nora Morrison lived on. A legacy of hope, of love, of second chances and the courage to take them. The cowboy who saved a woman from despair. The woman who said, "You have given me hope." Together, they had proven that even in the hardest times, in the wildest places, love could take root and grow into something beautiful and enduring. Something that would outlast them both and touch lives they would never meet. And that, in the end, was the greatest gift they gave. Not just to each other, but to everyone who came after. The knowledge that it is never too late for hope. That love, real love, is worth fighting for. That the darkest night eventually gives way to dawn. Their story became a part of the land itself, woven into the fabric of Montana territory and the hearts of all who knew it. Children grew up hearing about the couple who had loved so deeply and built so well. Young people in despair remembered that Nora had felt that way too, and look what she had gone on to create. Those struggling in their marriages thought of August and Nora working through their problems together, never giving up on each other. The Morrison ranch continued to thrive, a living monument to everything they had built. And every year, on the anniversary of that day when August found Nora on the cliff, the family would gather to remember, to tell the story one more time, to honor the legacy of hope and love that had started it all, because some stories are worth remembering, some loves are worth celebrating, and some legacies are worth preserving, generation after generation, so that no one ever forgets what is possible when two people choose hope over despair, love over loneliness, and together over alone. August and Nora Morrison had lived and loved in the wild west of Montana territory in the 1870s and beyond. Their story was one of hardship overcome, of love found in unexpected places, of hope given and received. It was a story of the American frontier, of the people who settled that hard land and made lives there through determination and faith. But more than that, it was a story of the human heart, of its capacity for pain and its equal capacity for joy, of how sometimes we need others to save us, and how being saved can give us the strength to save ourselves, of how love, once found, can transform everything. And so the story lived on, passed from parent to child, from grandparent to grandchild, a bright thread running through the generations. The cowboy and the woman he saved, the hope they gave each other, the life they built together, the love that endured beyond death, beyond time, beyond anything that could diminish it. It was a good story, a true story, a story worth telling. And they all lived, as the saying goes, happily ever after. Because sometimes, if you are very lucky and very brave, happy endings really do come true.